Brothers in Tech is a weekly podcast focused on personal and home technology, helping provide you, our fellow brothers and sisters in tech, with some information, assistance, and recommendations. Smart lighting in your home is made to sound simple, and there are certainly situations where that's true. But to assure you get the most out of your smart lighting solution, there are some factors you need to consider. In this episode of Brothers in Tech, the brothers discuss the different approaches to educating your lighting, as well as the questions you should ask yourself before doing so. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brothers in Tech here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson, and to my right, I have, wrong way. See, I keep pointing the wrong way. To my right is Brian Jackson. Oh, he's looking the right way. There you go. There you
yeah.
Good, too. How you doing,
Alan,
Brian?
how are we? I'm good. Good. How are you doing?
Good. Doing pretty good.
Gosh, you ask me this every time, and I gotta think
Yes.
of more creative ways to respond.
Yes, you do.
Right? I mean, like, oh my God, I'm amazing. Or
That's good.
Yeah, I'm okay. Right. So, I mean, I don't know. I just gotta mix it, put it on the little, the wheel, spin it, see which one comes up. Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty much the same every time we talk.
But I have
we're
to
into
ask.
so I'm kind of excited about doing it. So this is great.
But just know I have to ask. I mean, this is about the only time we really talk as brothers, and we're, across the country from each other, and we only see each other on the computer screen. I have to ask how you're doing.
So really, it's your fault. It's your fault that there is monotony there, right? I mean, you're starting it. So
okay. I bring it up. If you just give me a good reaffirmment that you're fine, everything's the same. You can even say ditto next time. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. We'll move on.
Ask me again.
Hey, how you doing, Brian? See, for audio listeners, Brian.
Sorry, that's right. Yeah.
Good. Well,
no,
okay.
I'm good.
All that
I'm
being
good.
said, well,
ready?
Let's talk tech. You want to talk some tech?
Well, okay. Well, while we're here, let's go ahead and do
that. This is Brothers in Tech. Believe it or not, it is actually a show that we try to produce, and not just us checking in on each other's well-being. My brother Brian and I, we get together and we talk technology, mainly how it relates to home, family, and personal technology. So kind of avoiding the business and enterprise stuff a little bit more. We're really trying to focus on home technology, things that people can use in their everyday life. And every time we get together, we have a different topic we like to explore. This episode, no exception. And we're really going to hone in on that home technology with this episode, and that we are talking about lighting, smart lighting, and strategies for smart lighting in your home. Now, faithful listeners, Brian will remember we've talked about home automation in the past. We talked about it from kind of a broad idea, kind of how could you start using home automation for some things in your home to simplify things or make things more automatic the way they happen. And we've talked about lighting a little bit, but we really kind of, I feel like, talked more in generalities about, hey, did you know that you could, make your home smart through lighting, smart lighting options. But I'm here to say I have been the last 2 weekends I've been spending on upgrading some of the lighting in my own house, and really trying to roll out more smart lighting options. And it has caused me to have some realizations that I feel like are important to share with everybody out there listening as well.
So really, this is going to be like a therapy session for you. It's
a little therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
It is, because I went in with grandiose expectations of what I'll be able to do with my lighting, but I'm also in a house that's 75 years old. And there are some challenges with that we'll talk about in a little bit. But even so, even if the age of your house is not an issue, you got a brand new house, there's still some lighting concerns you need to keep in mind. You see some of the advertising and marketing for smart home lighting. It's like, oh, just get some smart bulbs and put smart bulbs in all your lamps or fixtures, and you got some amazing things you can do. And that's true to some degree, but there's a lot of situations where that's not going to be a good fit. And so we're going to talk through what are the different options you have for smart lighting in your home. Why would you choose one over another, and how can they eventually all still work together? Okay.
Yep.
That's kind of the plan for
a
conversation. And it is really something that's kind of hitting me right now today. So I'm going to be speaking from a very more immediate situation on this. But Brian, I know you also
Some people would call it
incorporate.
selfish, but immediate, that's another, good
Well,
way to approach that, right?
it's really just what you're used to with me. So it's what
Okay.
we're talking about. It's going to be about my situation and my experience.
Let's talk about me. Let's talk
Yeah,
about me.
that's right.
No, I think this is a great topic. For a number of reasons. One, I think that's one that we need to revisit often because the tech keeps changing.
Yeah.
The prevalence of these objects and use cases are, they're increasing by the day. So even though we covered some of this over a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, I think it's incredibly important to come back to it and also see how we've changed. I know obviously you're going through quite a bit of a transformation with a new house, and I can talk a little bit about how some of the previous tech that I had within this realm transferred to a new home or didn't transfer new home. So this is a great topic to have. So
All right.
So how do you want to structure this?
Yeah,
How do you
here's
want
what I'd like
structure
to do. I want to talk about the 3 different ways that you can have lighting in your house that is smart lighting, that can be controlled. And when we say smart lighting, we're talking lights that can be controlled through your voice, through a mobile app, or can be affected by another device, and you can control it to be based on time. You can control it to be based on whether or not something else happens that causes this light to come on or off. Or it could be as simple as you just want to have some different colors on your lights and you need a way of doing that. So that's really what we're going to be talking about. Let's talk about the 3 things that you could use to affect your lighting in your home. And you really have 3 different types of products. You have bulbs, light bulbs, which I'm showing around here. This is a light bulb.
Look at that. Show and tell. Yeah, good.
You could use switches. And by switches, I'm talking about things on your wall that are like light switches. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Smart ones of those that can affect your lighting. We'll explain each of these in a little bit. Or you can use outlets, smart outlets to affect your lighting. So 3 different ways that your lighting can be, that you could roll out smart lighting into your house.
Okay. Can I just really quick maybe give a clarification on that?
Sure.
Or maybe an enhancement of that. These are ways to take a current light and add smart elements to it.
Yeah. Yes and no.
Right, because there are lights now that out of the box they already have a smart feature built into them, right? So that's buying a new lamp, right? But this is basically saying we have lights, or we have something here already. Now we got to decide how to make it smart, right?
Very true. Yeah, I'm not talking about going and getting out of the box. They're ready to go. You just plug them up and they're automatically Wi-Fi or wireless enabled. You're right. Those are a whole 4th kind of category that really there's not a lot to say about those. I mean, they're pretty much, they're set up the way they're set up, and they're pretty much out of the box. Plug them up, you're ready to go. You just need to connect with whatever app or service you're going to use for them. This is really you're trying to design and you want to either take existing lights you have or fixtures or outlets and do something with them to make the lighting in your house currently work the way you want it to.
Yeah, and sorry for derailing that, but I think the conclusion there is that I was right. So as we go past that, let's go ahead and jump into your somewhat incomplete approach to this. But go ahead.
I thought I had control of this episode, and I've already lost it. It's already gone.
Come on. Oh, yeah. All right. So which one do you want to start with? What do you want to start with?
I don't know, Brian. Which one should I start with?
Well, okay. I'm
gonna start with bulbs. Is that okay, Brian? Brian, can I start with bulbs? Is that fine if I start with that?
Can I ask, because we're talking about going which direction from the wall versus, which direction. Okay, whatever. Let's go with the bulb. Go with the bulb.
Okay.
Go with the bulbs. Okay.
So let's say you have a lamp or a light fixture or something else, anything in your house that needs a light bulb. Okay, obviously that's where most lighting is coming from. So that's pretty easy to work with. You've seen these old light bulbs all over the place. They sell them at just about any place you go now, department stores, electronic stores, Best Buys, you can get them at a whole lot of different manufacturers. The idea of a smart bulb. So a smart bulb, you basically replace a old traditional light bulb with one of these. And as long as this bulb is getting power to it, and it's on your Wi-Fi network, and you will have to use whatever app or service that this brand light bulb works with to connect to it. So if you go out and buy a Philips light bulb, you're going to have the Philips app. And in Philips' situation, you're going to need to have a bridge or a little hub of some sort that you have to actually plug up in your house to make it work. Now, a lot of other light bulbs you get don't always need hubs or bridges. They can work right out of the box. So you will need to kind of find out, do you have to have a standalone other bridge hub device plugged up to your network, or will these work out of the box? I tend to go with the ones out of the box myself. I'm trying to minimize how many of these extra bridges and hubs I have to keep sitting around my house. So I think this is is it a LifeX? Is it LYFX brand name smart bulb? Doesn't require a hub, doesn't require anything. Just you take it, you plug it in, it's ready to go. Now with a smart bulb, you can do several things. Through the app you use to control it, you can control the color, the brightness in many cases, and you can do some automation to it. I want this light bulb to come on at a certain time. I want it to turn off at a certain time, whatever it may be. Now, I'm a HomeKit guy. I use HomeKit as my ecosystem for my home automation. Brian, you use Alexa, like Amazon?
I do. Yep.
And then there's also Google Home, which is another platform. So one of those three, we've talked about those in a previous episode as well. This is really where you want to take this and you want to connect it with other things and make other things work together in a kind of a unified system. So most of these bulbs, if I go out and get a bulb, I'm going to get one that's going to work with my home system. So these work with HomeKit. So once I plug it up and work with it on I get the app that comes with this vendor's bulb. And then it allows me, if it's HomeKit compatible, it'll say I can now connect it to HomeKit, and it lets me connect it on HomeKit app. Or some of them let me just connect it straight from HomeKit directly. I can go into HomeKit, say I want to add a new accessory, and it lets me
find new devices or something like that, right? It'll do a search.
So you can get it into that your own ecosystem, however you want to manage your home automation. So that's pretty simple. Now, why are bulbs not always the best situation if you want to change and handle smart lighting? As I mentioned before, these have to have power going to them all the time for them to stay smart. What I mean by that is, imagine, Brian, you've got a lamp on your nightstand, and you put in a smart bulb, and you can make it now a nice whatever color you want. It's great. You can change the intensity. You can get the color you want. But the minute you go up and turn off manually
switch,
the lamp, guess what happens? Power is no longer getting to this bulb. So if you were to try to go on your app and say, I want to turn on this bulb, well, guess what? It's not going to see it because your lamp is technically off. And this is what trips up a lot of people as they start getting into it. It's like all of a sudden their bulbs aren't responding to their voice commands or app. Well, that's because the lamp is turned off, like manually turned off. It's got an actual manual switch on it. It's turned off. And it goes, I'm talking about most traditional lamps that people have, or lights, still have those actual physical switches on them. Same thing happens if your lamp or light, wherever that light is controlled by a light switch on the wall. Same idea. Light switch is turned off. That bulb is no longer getting power. So you can try all you want to tell Siri to, hey, turn on that light bulb. It's not going to do it because it's not going to see it. The bulb is no longer on the network. The bulb has to be getting power. So where are bulbs really good for on your light home situation? For me, they're good for situations where you have a light source that you are not physically, or you or guest or anybody else in your family going up and physically able to turn on and off. And I also think they're good for ones that are not connected to a light switch. That a light switch that you intend
for sure there. Yep. I absolutely agree with you there. Yeah. Don't put them on a light switch because you'll get yourself frustrated.
That's right. Now you're right. The ones where I can go up and turn the lamp on and off manually, at least if I know, but I always try to think about, what if I've got guests over, or if somebody wants to sit it and they want to turn on a lamp? Well, they can turn it on and the bulb could come on. But then if they go and turn it back off, that bulb is now off. And so that's why I say, anytime you got a situation where you're not going to have possible human interaction with that light source, is a great place for a smart bulb. So
Yep.
here's a couple examples. I've got a bookshelf in another room, and we have a lamp up on that bookshelf. And that lamp is not one we go up and reach. It's not controlled by a light switch. It's just one we want for accent at night. We want it to be lighting up that top bookshelf at night. Perfect for a smart bulb. I can go and put in the bulb and say, yep, I want this bulb to turn on at sunset, and I want it to turn back off at midnight. So it's on all night. I just know it's always going to come on. I can set the color to be exactly the color I want for that accent area. There's no human interaction. There's no switches controlling it. Nobody goes up and turns it on and off. It's perfect. That is a great situation for a smart bulb by itself. Right.
Yep. No, yep. Let me add to that, Alan, because
yeah, sure.
And I'll tell you my example. So I have smart bulbs in our bedroom because we have matching bedside table lamps. Okay. So and I'll tell you in a minute why that matches my next use case. My other use case is down in the basement where we have two lamps, two completely different lamps, but they, as you walk into the door, they are in the opposite corners of the room. Okay. Which is very similar to the bedroom, right? We walk in and you're facing the bed, and therefore you've got it far away from you. So I use those because those are rooms that I want to go into, turn on two things at once. Okay, which allows me to do that with voice because I can match them together and say, turn on the family room lamps or lights or the bedroom lights. And also, I do not want to be walking into a dark room around a bed, around downstairs in the basement. It's dark to get to those things. So when the light is on the opposite side of where you're going into, and you don't want to fumble through. So we never want to touch those lights, right? We don't have any reason of touching those lights. So that it matches your use case. I don't want to go and manually touch them, and we never do. So we have at night, we have something. We walk into our bedroom and say, turn on the bedroom lights. And when we're ready to go to bed, and this is something I'll talk about a little later, we say, Alexa, good night. And we have this whole series of things that goes on. And one of those happens to be those two lights come down. Sorry, you can hear her. She heard me. So
Alexa was talking to her. Well, you're right. See, there again, the criteria was these are light sources that you have no intention and not going to go up and manually, physically turn on and off.
And not that I can't, but that I don't want to, right? I mean, that's you think about that too, right? If you've got a light that may be finicky, right? That that you go and you twist it a few times or all these sorts of things. Yeah. If you're not going to touch it, if you're willing not to touch it, then a light bulb's a good source. So
I'll give you a good example. So when we moved in this house, we have a guest room, and I thought, oh man, we got two nice lamps we're going to put on the sides of the bed, kind of like side tables, lamps, and we're going to make them kind of nice, cool color to be in the room, kind of match the decor, the tone of the lamp or the light bulbs. Put two light bulbs in there. It's perfect. I can walk in the room. Hey, turn on it's called the Carolina room. I'm sure you probably like that. So turn on the Carolina room lights, and boom, they pop up. They look great. I love it.
And then a vomit sound comes out of the speaker as well when you say Carolina room. But yeah, go ahead. I was
going to make it the Virginia room, but then it was just the room was going to be really slow and boring, and I just couldn't.
But sorry. Yet it highlights gold with championships. No, it's okay.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I'm sorry, championship one.
I was going to say,
I should say that.
Let's not even count championships. Okay, let's just not even go there.
Okay, go ahead.
But the problem was, first time we had a guest who actually was staying in that room. Guess what?
They flip the switch,
flipping the lights on and off. Even though you say, "Hey." Just use your voice or do whatever. I mean, they don't have the app. I'm not going to give them HomeKit access to my home. And, Siri, I'm not going to tell them, hey, you got to use your voice to turn on these lamps or whatever. The natural inclination is it's right next to the bed, but I'm going to go up and turn it on and off. And again, when they left, the lights were off, and we wondered why they didn't come on at night automatically. Well, it's because the lamps were turned off. And again, now, yes, you could try to explain to your family members and guests and try to enforce that. It's just, I don't think it's worth it. Not when there's other options to explore for your lighting. So that's where we're going to get to the other ones. But the bulbs on their own are good. But you really do need to think about where these bulbs are going to be used.
Yeah.
And are they in a situation where they're always going to be active power going to them? because that's the only way that you get the full advantage of smart bulbs that you have based on time or based on motion or anything else turning on. Is they have to be powered all the time. Okay.
And you do want to make sure, as you said, this is the most advantageous and the most feature-full way to approach this. But it has some issues. I mean, if you can change the bulb, if you are someone, as you said, in your use case, you have so many cool things you can do with it, dimming, slow dim, all this stuff. I did want to mention real quick, just to clarify and make sure we don't get, a lot of, email rebuttals later, but not all smart bulbs are color. So make sure that when you're looking for bulbs, color is not something that all of them can do. I actually made that mistake. I looked on and initially thought, well, anything that's LED,
it's a Wi-Fi bulb.
A range, right? No, you have to look and see, is it white only? Is it color? And of course, they're more expensive if they're color. So you need to think about if that's really needed or not. But
is it pretty much, and I'm asking truly just to make sure I'm clear, pretty much the only distinctions are, is it a white only bulb or is it a color bulb? I mean,
that's all I've seen. Now
there's not a restrictive version of a color bulb that only has a certain color spectrum, right?
No, but I do think some brands of color bulbs maybe have a different spectrum, and potentially they could be that they're doing different things. I don't know. I only have, I think, 2 that are colored bulbs, and they're from 2 different companies, and they both seem to work the same. So I think that's okay. Yeah.
I've used about 4 different bulb brands. And it's pretty much either, if you get one that's a white bulb only, you can do different, like some tones sometimes,
right?
Or it's just, or definitely the brightness, but it's still pretty much a white light. But if you go with a color light, you can do any color. Yeah, that's kind of the 2 distinctions I've seen in the bulbs.
Except I would say, if you know for a fact that 95% of the time you really want this to be a version of regular light, not colored. Yeah, I think you are better off going with a color, a white one, because I do think that you have a greater range, you have greater control, you have less issues that could potentially pop up in terms of tweaking colors. So I think that's
another reason you want to go with a truly white bulb, if you want to keep it white all the time, and that's what you're looking for, is that sometimes if your power goes out or flickers and the bulbs get reset, the color bulbs will reset to some really sometimes funky colors, and that can be a little jarring when they come back on. At least with the white colors, it's like it's going to be a version of white that comes back on.
Yeah, your guests start to really wonder about you when they come back on, as a red lights everywhere. Yeah,
red and green lights in your bedroom. What's going on there?
Swinger room did we come into?
Yeah. So anyway, that's about
bulbs.
Light bulbs. That's bulbs. I think bulbs are great. I think they can do so much for you, but you've got to be mindful of the situation you're putting them into.
Okay. And let me just really quickly reiterate, and this is with all of them, but I want to make sure, because I've screwed this up with bulbs, do double check that it's going to work with your assistant system. That it works with Alexa, that it works with HomeKit, or that it works with HomeKit's usually the odd one, right? But I
was going to say Alexa and Google. It seems almost everything seems to work with them. It's the HomeKit's the one. If you are going to use HomeKit, you need to check that out and make sure that tag's on there. I've gotten so many times I've bought something that I just assumed was HomeKit, maybe because another version of their product is, and I get it in and it doesn't work, and it's a pain. So good point.
So you'll see lots of companies. You'll see Hue. You'll see Casa. We have Casa. Yeah. We have Wise, which is the company I always bring up. They have their own bulbs. So there's lots of them out there, and they will all integrate together if you use a system like Google Home or HomeKit or Alexa, assuming that they're all working with that. It won't recognize the difference, right? You'll be able to say, do this, and it can work with all of them. So.
Yeah. So just again, as you mentioned, Wise, a great brand name for some bulbs. I think they have some wonderful bulbs. Only probably reason I don't use them is they're not HomeKit bulbs. That's the only reason. If they were, I'd use them in a heartbeat. Wise, pay attention. If you ever get a HomeKit version, I'm on board right away. So this is an example. I mean, the bulbs they're not cheap. They are getting better in their pricing. Wise is a great option if you want to look at cost-effective bulbs. You get a 4-pack for $40. I mean, that's $10 a bulb, but they are LED bulbs. They do last longer than old traditional bulbs, and you have all these other capabilities with them. You can get with color, timing, triggered by motion, other things you can do if you tie it into your home situation. So,
Alan, do we know much about the longevity of smart bulbs? Obviously,
don't.
LED bulbs last forever, right? I
Sure.
mean, they're gonna be a great way to save money in the longer. But the smart bulbs have a Wi-Fi element in them, which I just
Yeah.
wonder about longevity, and
That
that's
causes them to be a
partly
little shorter life.
yeah, and partly that's
I
one of
don't
the
know.
reasons why I've always purchased brand names that I know, whether it's the Casa or the Hue
Yeah.
or the Wise, just because they may say it's LED. LED lasts forever. Yes, that's true, but they're not talking necessarily about the smart components of it, right?
Yeah.
So
It's true. I don't know. And I'm actually kind of bothered you asked a question I didn't know the answer to. So,
well, it's
we'll have to follow
very
up on
common. Yeah, you must be bothered a lot, actually. Okay, good.
All right. Let's
Go
talk.
ahead. Switch it up.
Let's talk the next step here.
Yep.
So,
are we walking our way back to the wall? What are we doing here?
well, no, we're at the wall right now.
You're at the wall. Okay.
Yeah. So if you've got a lot of situations in your house where you have lights fixtures, okay, lights already in the walls.
Yep. Okay.
Or let's say lights over a table, hanging lights, wall lights, ceiling lights. And a lot of those, in many cases, may not use traditional bulb sizes. They're not the traditional smart bulb base. Yep. Maybe they're like little chandelier lights. Maybe they're little small lights. Or you've just got a light fixture that's got, 8 bulbs on it. It's like a chandelier type of thing over a dining room table or something. Anything where the light's already fixed into the wiring of the wall. If it's compatible with smart bulbs, yes, you could go and put smart bulbs in any of those light fixtures, and you get some of the benefits of that. But the downside is these lights are controlled by a light switch somewhere. Okay, that's the way you control them. If the light switch goes off, smart bulbs don't work anyway. You wouldn't be able to connect to them. You couldn't turn them on remotely. So there's a lot of situations where we have pre-existing lighting in a house, all controlled by a light switch somewhere. And what do we do in those situations? You can't really do anything at the outlet, which is another option we're going to talk about in a minute. You're pretty much limited to, I have to control it at this light switch, unless I go and swap them all out with smart bulbs. But even then, you've got the danger of them not working if the light switch is turned off, or maybe you go and disable the light switch. There's just a lot of workarounds you have to deal with. Well, they do make light switches like the one I'm holding in my hand, which I don't know if you can see. Yep, there you go.
Yep.
That is a light switch. It replaces the switch on your wall with a Wi-Fi enabled smart switch. And it does just like what your light switch would do, which is you press it, it comes on, you press it the other direction, it turns off. But because it's Wi-Fi smart enabled, you can also control it from your mobile phone, control it with your voice. And if you tie it into your Alexa, Google, or a HomeKit situation, you could actually have it to where if you turn on the switch, not only turns on your lights, your overhead lights or whatever lights it's controlling, but you can trigger it to also turn on other lights. So that's the nice thing about these switches is that they kind of, to me, serve a little bit of a dual function. They replace out your traditional toggle switch on your light, but they can also, because they are still triggers for other things that can happen, you could have them trigger other lights. Perfect example. We have a living room that we have like 4 lights around the room. 2 of them are controlled by a light switch. Like you can actually flip the light switch and those lights will come on. The other 2 lights are not. They're not controlled by that light switch. So what we can do is we can replace the light switch with one of these. And I can program it now to say, okay, yes, when you turn on this light switch, it's going to obviously turn on the 2 lights it controls, but I also want to turn on the other 2 lights. So it's going to trigger those 2, which are using smart bulbs to turn on automatically. So that worked pretty well. Nice. These light switches, there's a few things you need to keep in mind about these. You do have to do a little electrical wiring to get them in and to replace them out. They do replace out your existing light switch. So you buy one of these. This is the Lutron Cassetta, their wireless setup. And I think I've got a picture I can show of some of their products as well for people who want to see that. They make a whole line.
Great name, and wall switches and plates and that sort of thing. They've been around.
See,
a while.
they make a whole assortment of different ones. Dimmer switches. This is a dimmer switch, which is another thing I didn't mention. This allows you to dim your lights. So if you have some lights that are ones that would really benefit from being able to dim and control the brightness from the wall switch, you can do that with the dimmer switch. So again, think about those situations where you have lights. We have an outdoor patio light that is over kind of a patio out back, and it's controlled by a light switch on the inside. Now I could go in and put a Wi-Fi bulb up there and have it turn on and off, but sure enough, somebody's going to hit that switch on the inside, turn it on or off. And also, I'm not really crazy about having a Wi-Fi bulb out in an outdoor little light setting either.
Yeah, it's tricky.
So we just said, let's just replace the switch with one of these. So that way we can not only toggle it on and off ourselves, we can use the existing light bulb that's in there, which we happen to like the color and the way the light bulb looks. But also if we forget to turn it off at night, we can have an automation set up in HomeKit to say, hey, you know what, at 11:59 p.m., go ahead and switch it off if it's on. So it's going to be off no matter what. So this is what's great, is that you toggle on and off switch, but it's actually triggering it just like you would a mobile app on and off button by toggling it. So it's no longer a physical, has to be in an on or off position to make this work.
Yeah.
Wiring wise, they make the instructions pretty clear on how you can go in and swap out the wiring you've got behind your light switch and match it with the ones that you've got now through your new device. What I really love about some of these new switches, though, especially the ones that the Lutron ones do, their Cassetta brand of light switches, is some of them actually come with a little, what they call a little, it's called their Pico Remote, which is basically they provide you sometimes with, if you get a kit that has an extra light switch, this is one they give you that does not have to be wired in anywhere. You can just mount this on a wall, and now you have a second place where you can toggle the same light switch. So you basically have turned it into a 3-way light switch where you can now
that's very cool.
Turn it on in one place, but if you're at the other end of the room, you could have another one of these, not having to be wired, but you can just mount it on the wall with a faceplate and make it look just like a regular light switch. But it actually is linked to the other one and will function the same way. So I can turn it off there, and it acts just like I turned it off at the other switch. So
I love it.
These are really good examples if you have already existing wired lights that you need to be able to control, and there's a light switch that controls it right now, that you want to take over that light switch and do some more automation with it. Still have it be a light switch on the wall, though. And if it's ones that, bulbs just don't make sense, because this is a place where the light switch will be turned on and off at times, and you want to make sure you keep that functionality. Lutron, their Cassetta line, I've found to be the best. I've got 3 right now that I've just put in recently, and they work wonderful. The couple key things to note, and I know I mentioned that you have to get into the electrical side to make this work. You got to do a little wiring, and they walk you through that pretty well. But some of their products require, and a lot of these light switches that are made by other vendors require a neutral wire. Yes. A neutral wire is like, it's typically colored, the white colored wire that runs through the back of your outlet. It has to have those to work. You have to wire that in. Now, some houses, like mine, do not have a neutral wire because they were built back in 1950s, and back then neutral wires were not really a thing. And nobody before me ever went and had an electrical group go through and run neutral wire throughout the house. So I have no neutral wire. Luckily, the Cassetta line by Lutron, they do have some that do not need a neutral wire. Their dimmer switches in particular don't need a neutral wire. So we'll work with even older homes and older wiring situations. But again, these are perfect if you're in a situation where you've got pre-existing wired lights that you want to control. You still want to use a light switch mechanism to turn them on and off, as well as the Wi-Fi app or voice activation. And overhead lighting, wall lighting, other places, outdoor lighting, that a bulb just doesn't make sense. This is where you go. So
Well, let me jump in, Alan, and give
Yeah.
you as you, surprisingly, you did a great job there
Thank you.
of talking through that. But maybe as I've thought the reasons that I would use this, here's some other kind of, I don't know, overgeneralizations, right? You mentioned
Sure.
earlier the guest bedroom.
Hmm.
This is a perfect move for a guest bedroom,
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yep.
Because you allow yourself smart features, but you don't take away the dumb approach to the smart feature, right? Which is, oh,
Yes,
I'm just going to flip the light switch, and the light
that's right.
switch still works, right? It still does what it's supposed to do. So I agree with you. It is totally perfect. It is a perfect solution for still allowing some smart features within a guest bedroom where other people are
Yeah.
going to engage with it, and you don't have to teach them what to say. You don't have to teach them what
Hmm.
not to do. I think that's a smart move. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, and this is probably fairly obvious, but I just want to make sure, don't double up your smart features. So
Mm,
don't put a smart bulb on a smart
yeah,
switch.
and I'm glad you
That
brought that
makes
up.
no sense whatsoever. And
Well,
and
and I
and
was going to
well,
mention that too. Um,
why? Because you did
it's
it. Tell me you
I
did it.
did.
Tell me
Yeah,
you
yeah,
tried
no,
to
I
do it.
did. I tried it and it didn't work. And well,
Yes.
not only is it doubling up on a problem, but it actually in some situations is not compatible. Um,
Yeah.
if
Yep.
you try to have a smart outlet, let's say you have a light switch that controls an outlet in your house, like an actual plug
Yep.
outlet. Um, if you try to put a smart outlet on there for whatever reason, it's going to freak out. Most of the times. I mean, at least the ones I worked with will. If you
Yep.
try to put a smart bulb into a light fixture that is being controlled now by one of these dimmers, it could also not work very well. The only reason, I mean, I think, there is some benefit if you really wanted your lights to be a certain color and you needed a smart bulb to do that, even though you're going to control the whole light fixture from your wall. But I'm just here to say, and I think they even caution you on a lot of the instructions is saying, mixing and matching smart outlets or smart bulbs with a smart switch can cause some unintended consequences. I've had things
Agreed.
kind of flicker and flash. I've had lights that just don't stay connected because of it. So it has a hard time communicating with
Yep.
that. You're
Yep.
right.
No, I think that's really smart.
Yeah.
So great for guest bedroom. Great for situations where I would even say it's really nice for, if you're trying to help kind of your parents, let's say an older couple, to have some smart features. Again, it doesn't get rid of the typical function, which is
Mhm.
click a light switch on or click
Yeah.
a dimmer or whatever. And I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't mention, but a lot of people, and my house certainly was one of these when we moved in, that had some outlets that were controlled by light switches. And so this is kind of a nice thing
Yeah.
too, to be thinking about. All right, you've got an outlet on a switch. Do I want some smart features there? And we'll certainly talk next about, do I want, to create an outlet switch, or do I want to have
Right.
it so that anything on this particular switch, and I'll give you an example. We have a one switch right as you come in our house. You make a corner into the living room, and there is one switch in a corner that only works the outlet, and that's all it
Hmm.
does. And it's
Yeah.
right in front of a big window. The only thing that I'm ever going to have there, I mean, I'm not going to put a radio there. I'm not going to put anything else.
Sure.
I'm going to put a TV there. The only thing that's ever going to be there is a light.
Hmm.
And so we thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to test out the light switch for that, and it's worked great. We can still, we don't want to be able to, or we don't want to be stuck having to use voice for it, but we want it to still use voice. So when we say goodnight,
Yeah.
we want it to
Hmm.
turn that one off.
Sure.
But that's a Christmas tree location. That's a front lamp location. That's something that's going to continue to change. So if I had a light bulb on a lamp, well, now all of a sudden my Christmas tree won't do anything when I plug it in instead,
Right.
or when I do something else. So this is kind of, as you say, you talked earlier, universal, whatever it is you're controlling with that switch, let's make that part as smart as it can be. And so,
Yes.
yeah, I think there's lots of cool uses for that.
I
So
mean, if you've already got a home where you've kind of eliminated the need for a lot of light switches and you've got your lighting handled in all different ways, or if you're someone who's very comfortable with using your voice for all or motion detection for all lighting situations, then yeah, you could probably avoid getting away with not using switches and not go
yep.
that route. I'm not one of those people, and our family's not one of those people. We still like to have some tactile. I walk into a room, I want to quickly turn on something, and that's where the switches are really great for that.
Or think about this,
really,
right?
really
Are you in a household where you might actually want to turn on and off the lights when other people are sleeping? When you don't want to say do this, right? You actually would like to just touch it and turn it on, right?
That's true.
So
that's a very good
I think
point
that's
too.
another good reason. Alan, one more real quick piece. You mentioned this already in a way, but I just want to clarify. Anytime you have multiple bulbs being controlled from one, and I'm not just suggesting that you've got this really cool switch that controls multiple lamps, but if you have a lamp that has multiple bulbs in it, it is cost ineffective to go and replace all of those bulbs with a smart bulb. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? Having that be a swap, right? Now, maybe you're someone who, like, let's say the fan behind you. If I go and buy, let's say four light bulbs, I got to compare that and compare the connection, right? So if I go and say turn on the fan light, and it's got 4 bulbs, and I've made all 4 of those different individual bulbs. Now there are 4 signals that have to be relayed and turned on. So tell me you did this. Tell me.
Well, no, I've done it. I've done it for specific reasons.
I'd like to know why.
Why. So the color of the lights is one thing. I've got a room where I've got 4 lamps in there, and I want all the lamps to have a similar color.
So they're on one switch?
Yeah, they're on one of these now. These Lutron switches. I've got it set up to where the Lutron switch will turn on the lights that are connected to the actual switch already by wiring, but it also is triggered to turn on the Wi-Fi bulbs and the other lamps in the room, and everything is very consistent. They actually come on pretty much simultaneously. And I've got a lamp that has 2 bulbs in it. I've got a light that's got 2 bulbs in it. What's that?
What's the purpose of the switch then?
Because I can walk into the room and hit the light switch, and it turns on all the lights in the room.
Okay, so you want still the manual, but you want all of those to have.
But I wanted more lights to come on,
and all of that.
I wanted more lights to come on than just the 2 that were controlled by the light switch natively.
Okay.
So like,
do you have lamps that have multiple bulbs within one fixture?
I've got one
on that as well.
I've got one lamp that has 2 bulbs. And the only reason I've got them on Wi-Fi and not on an outlet, which we'll talk about in a moment, is that I wanted to tweak the color to get the colors to be a very particular color that matches the rest of the room and looks good.
Pretty important. Color is the one thing that will trip you right into a bulb.
That's right.
Has to trip you into a bulb, unless you can find a bulb that has that color. Right?
Yeah. If I could get traditional bulbs exactly what I wanted to look like to match everything else, I would have gone that route. Now I'll use a smart outlet, which we'll talk about in a moment instead. So yeah, there are some situations. So right now I can walk into my living room. I've got 2 outlets. One is a true wired outlet, and one is one of these little Pico extension outlets that are just mounted to the wall. I can walk in the room and hit it from either side with those outlets, and it will turn on all the lights in the room.
And
at the same time
that you want. Yeah,
that's right. But at the same time, I've also got it set to say at sunset, go ahead and turn on all those lights, because we're going to have our living room always going to have light from like 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock where it's going to be on. And it'll turn off automatically at night unless you go and manually turn the wall switch on. So yeah, for that particular reason, that's why
I was hoping to really make fun of you for doubling up there, but I can see the color and the ability to go non-voice. Okay. All right.
Again, if you're somebody if you're someone who is completely comfortable, you and other people who live in your house, with just giving out verbal commands on all your lighting, I'd say try to get away from switches. Try to avoid it. It's great. But I just think there's too many people that still like to have that manual control to go up and hit something. And plus these, as you can see, these dimmer switches, which is one of the versions that they make, you can adjust the dimming of the lights too. So although you can do that with your voice and tell it, hey, reduce by X%, whatever, it is a little more unwieldy to do that by voice than it is to go up sometimes and just hit the up and down buttons to get it where you want it level wise. So again, it's a matter of preference. It's a matter of practicality. And it's sometimes just whatever's already in your house that you have to kind of work with. That's what you're dealing with.
So Alan, do you know, and not to derail this at all, but do they have smart buttons that are
Yes.
not wired into your system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So I could mount a button on a wall that clicking the button then makes
Yes.
the bulbs do what they're supposed to do and all of that stuff because
They
it
do
sends a
make
Wi-Fi signal, but not
buttons
wired.
that's not wired. And you can
Okay.
mount them, and you can actually mount them in kind of in a fixture that covers up where your light switch was. And that's great. Just keep in mind, if there is a light fixture that is wired into
That's
your
wired.
wall or ceiling, you
You're
are not able to
getting it.
control that
Well,
unless it's using a Wi-Fi bulb.
unless it's got bulb. But if you're already doing Wi-Fi bulbs on everything because of color,
True.
then
But
you
then
can
if
do
you've
the
got a
button.
chandelier, if you've got a chandelier that's got 6 small base little mini lights on it,
Yep.
I mean, they don't really make a lot of mini small base
Mini,
lights yet on the
smart bulbs.
Wi-Fi side yet.
Hmm.
And plus, even if you did, they don't always really look like the kind that you would want to have in a chandelier fixture or an open light fixture. So that's another thing. These are not terribly attractive to have out in an open lighting fixture all the time, depending on the kind of house you have and the kind of lighting you want. So imagine a chandelier with 6 of these sitting around it. I mean, it's not really the look you want necessarily.
Yeah.
So that's where a switch is still kind of something you work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, these are all questions you got to
convinced
ask yourself. Believe me, I have plotted out my house and said what makes sense for each space. And in some situations, in 2 rooms in particular, switches are making sense, and that's where we went with.
Very cool.
Now let's go and talk about the final option you've got for kind of controlling your lights. And this is, we've already hinted at it a few times, but it is the smart outlet.
Yep.
Now what this is a box that will turn your existing outlet into a smart device. So anything you plug into this outlet, once it's plugged into your wall and controlled by your apps, you can turn on and off. You can have it be triggered by something else in your house, like motion. You can have it triggered by voice, whatever else. Anything is plugged into this. Now, this extends beyond just lighting. This means anything you've got plugged into this will turn on and off. But lighting is a good application for it. So let's go back to some of those examples, Brian, we were talking about. We've got a light in a room. Let's say the lamp. A lamp you've got in the room, you really like, you want to use the bulb that's already in it because maybe it's a more exposed bulb light or something where you have a certain look.
Some cool Edison bulb or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't, it's also not one that you're tempted or likely to go up and manually turn on and off. Okay.
Or want to wire it. Or if you don't want to wire it.
You definitely don't want to wire it. Then that's where the outlets come in perfect.
Yep.
Because then you plug in the outlet, you plug your lamp into the outlet, and you can now control that lamp and say, yep, I want every time I walk into the room, if my little motion detector detects I'm there, go and flip on that outlet, and anything plugged into this switch will then turn on. Now, you can, I don't think they always recommend it, but I mean, I've tried it enough times it works. If you've got multiple lights, like 2 lamps that are at 2 ends of a bed or 2 ends of a table, if you can stitch them together from power and get them to go into one outlet using like a little simple extension cord or something, then when you turn on that light, it turns on both. So that's another great example of one. We've got like a sideboard table that's got 2 little lamps on it, and the lamps have small clear bulbs on them, not ones we could replace out. I've got them stitched underneath to plug, stitched together with a small extension cord going into this. They both come on when we flip it on. You can use these for other things too, besides just lights, like I said, but just, again, you have the same issue with this that you do with the Wi-Fi bulbs.
Yeah.
If the device that they're meant to control is physically turned off, it doesn't matter what you do with that outlet, they will not turn on. So for example, if you have a lamp plugged in, but you go and physically turn the lamp off at its little on and off switch, this will do nothing until that lamp is turned back on. So it's the same as the bulb. The difference is this is a lot more, it expands to a lot more things.
Yeah.
You have a lot more control, and you can use bulbs that you like, color or shape or style of a bulb, and not worry about it, because this will actually control the light, not your bulbs.
Yep.
So I love these. I've got a lot of these. These are great.
I do too.
But I just have to be very mindful of when I use them or not. And again,
and they're There are a number of limitations of those. I would say they are the Swiss Army knife of the
Mhm.
kind of the situation where you know it's going to work. It's just a matter of the fact that you know that if you've got power to something, it does something. This is what that does, right?
Yep.
Here's my issues with the smart outlets. Well, one, obviously, there is no dimming, there is no changing of colors, there is no additional features that a bulb might have, or even that a light wall switch might have. This is literally on and off, and so you
Mhm.
need to be aware of that. You need to be thinking that is that thing that I have. So I have one over here in my corner, and of course you can't see it right now, but there's a lamp right beside me in my office that I have on a switch because I don't particularly see myself ever needing to dim it, to change
Mhm.
colors. It's pretty
Right.
much I turn it on when I'm working and it's back behind me and it's fine. So simplicity there. But realize a couple of things. One, these switches I have yet to have one, and I've tried multiple types. The T was it T-Link or
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
Casa and T-Link, some of those.
Yeah.
There's always a click, right? So if you're
Yeah.
interested in this, that when you say turn on that lamp or turn on that light, there's going to be a actual audible click that you'll hear to turn it
Yeah.
on and off. The other thing is, and I've had people that I've discussed this with, and have talked to them about ways of kind of enhancing their smart features with their lights. That they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I've got so many things that I use that I'd love to to have it turn on at a certain time and do certain things." And someone says, "Oh, what about my coffee maker?" It's like, okay, well, if you just plug your coffee maker in, does it start brewing? No. So all
No.
this is doing is turning the power on, right? There's
Right.
still
That's
three
right.
other steps that have to happen. So you can't just say, I'm going to plug this in. So even when they said, oh, well, what about a radio? If I wanted to listen to the radio. So, well, as long as the radio has a manual turn on. So like I
Mhm.
have a small radio that if I turn
Yep.
the dial, it's on. And if I
Yep.
unplug it and plug it back in, it's still on, AM, FM, whatever. There you go. You could use
Yeah.
that, right?
That
You could
works.
say, hey, I want the radio to come on, boom, it's on, click on
Basically,
and off.
yeah.
So it's really about
Basically, the
on and
question
off.
is
That's it.
exactly, is it a device that if you were to leave it in a on state, unplug it, then you plug it back
Plug it back
in,
in.
will it come back onto an on state? If it does, these will work great.
Yep.
These will do
Yep.
exactly what you need to do. But you're right. A lot of devices nowadays, I mean, even like some, radios, like newer radios, they won't do that. So you
You
really
still
have
would
to
need
make
a
sure
remote on, all that stuff,
that's right.
right? Power
Yeah.
doesn't mean working. It just means power
Yeah.
is flowing,
And
right?
and
So,
that's why I think lighting is still probably the main use of these because
yeah,
lighting, traditional lighting that you would plug into this does have an on-off switch, especially lamps and floor lamps and all that. So that's
yeah,
why these are so popular for lamps, I think, because lamps
yep,
do have that physical on and off. Again, just remember, if there is a light switch that controls it as well, this will screw that up.
yep.
Don't put this
Agreed.
into an outlet that is
Don't
controlled
double
by
it
a
up.
light switch.
Don't double it up unless
And
you really thought through why you're doubling
yeah.
up. Yep.
And then
Yep.
if you're putting a lamp in on this that also has a Wi-Fi bulb, that is going to be problematic as well. So again, these are independent things that you need to pick and choose for each lighting situation, what works best.
Yep.
The good
Yep.
news about all this, Brian, is that you can mix and match all these approaches. I mean, you can have a room that
Mhm.
has a couple of lamps plugged into smart outlets that pop on. You could have a light switch to control some other lights in the room on one side of the room or overhead light. And you could have light bulbs in certain fixtures that do what you want to do. And as
Yeah.
long as you are using either, you use the exact same brand of all lights, and their app will let you control and kind of run some automations between it. Or more than likely, they're from different brands. You stitch them into your Alexa, your HomeKit, or your Google Home, and you make
Yep.
them work off each other.
Yep.
So, for
Agreed.
example, I had the situation I told you before: light switch on the wall to control an overhead light. But I wanted that same, whenever that light came on overhead, I also wanted two other lamps on the other side of the room to also come on. So I was able to say, HomeKit, whenever this light comes on, I want you to also turn on those other two lamps. One of them is through an outlet for the lamp. The other one was two LED bulbs or smart bulbs on the fixture, and it controlled all of them. So if I hit this button, all of them turn on. So you can actually set triggers off of any one of these items. If you say, hey, anytime this light bulb comes on, I want you to also turn on this switch. You could totally set that up. So that's the great thing, is that even if they're different manufacturers, different brands, if you stitch them into your whatever home system you decide to use, you can have them all trigger each other and work together to create the environment you want. You just really have to think through what type of these three approaches is going to work for the light I want to work with.
Yeah. Yep. Let me add one more quick piece here, Alan, because I've been thinking as you're talking. But so when you mention outlet, I want people to know that there's another form of an outlet that can be really beneficial for many of you. For an outdoor, they have extension cords that are like a smart outlet. We have this outside right now, and so it can be outdoors. It looks like an extension, basically a dongle for an extension cord, where you could have two, extension cords plugged into this thing, and you can make that extension cord dongle smart as well. Turn on outdoor lights, turn off outdoor lights, all of that thing, which of course, you're not going to want to change lots of things. So
that's just an example of the Castle one. But yeah, it's meant for outdoor. It's really rugged. It's meant for more outdoor application. I've got a couple of those outside that controlled our outdoor Christmas lights and control outdoor lighting in general, our sidewalk lighting. So I can actually say, to stitch those into our system and have them come on at certain times as well. Yeah.
So maybe let's wrap this up with, since you're now the expert, you've gone through this and you've had the trials and tribulations, and I'm gonna test you. Okay. I'm gonna give you a situation, and you tell me which of the three I should be using.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Go for it.
I have a set of string lights.
Okay.
That I want to turn on and off.
Okay.
How should I be doing that?
Oh, string lights you want to turn on and off. That's just using a smart outlet.
Okay. Why? Tell me why.
Because, you can't replace the bulbs on a string light with LED bulbs.
Or actually, if it's a string light,
sorry. Okay. I should have backed up. I should have backed up.
Okay.
Is this a pre-existing string lights that you already have, or is this one that you're going to go out and buy string lights?
This is a Costco, has about 30 light bulbs on one string that go outdoor.
Okay. All right. Then I'm saying smart outlet.
Yep.
And for that.
Smart outlet.
Because smart outlet, you plug it in and you want it, those little lights will come on as soon as they get power, and they will turn off as soon as you unplug power.
Yep.
So smart outlet.
It makes 0 sense to pay $10 a bulb for 30 bulbs. Right.
Well, no, not for the bulbs. And then,
right. And you probably don't have an outdoor. Yeah.
Now I'll say this: if for any reason they are going to be able to be plugged into a outlet that is controlled by a switch, I would still plug them right. Then you could plug them in and you could actually do a smart switch if you wanted to. But the best, most economical way is just to put in the outlet, smart outlet at the outlet.
If it's outdoor, buy an outdoor one that can do multiple. We have two sets of string lights. We have one dongle that splits into two. So we have it kind of outlet 1, outlet 2 within the same thing. And we have upper string lights and lower string lights in our backyard, and we can say both together. Okay,
we've got the same for our sidewalk lights. Yep.
Let me give you another one.
Okay.
I have a lamp that's in a room that I'm going to go into, and I really would like to have it represent different brightnesses depending on my mood or my situation.
Okay.
Do you need to know more?
So the light is not one that's humans are going to go up and mess around with a lot.
No.
Okay. And it's a single light.
Yes. Single light.
All right. Well, even if it was 2 or 3, but yeah, then I would assume that's the LED. You get the smart bulbs that you can control. If you trigger it based on motion, if you have a motion sensor in the room, somebody walks into the room, it can turn on the lights. If it's certain times of the day, you can say, hey, I want the bulb to be at 10% at this time of the day. I want it to be at 30%. I want it to be this color in the morning. I want it to be this color in the evening, whatever.
If I would have mentioned color, that would have been too easy. That would have been right? Yeah.
The key there, though, is making sure, like you said, that there's not a wall switch that also controls those same lights, and that it's not a light that somebody is going to naturally want to go up and turn on or off. See, I'll give you a kind of a unique situation. We have a closet in our hallway, and the closet door has some, what do you call those, blinds, where you can see like light coming through that. And we really like the idea of like a light. This kind of becomes a night light almost in the hallway at night, where it's just a single bulb. It's got a bulb up in the ceiling of that closet. It's good. So I'm like, I put an LED bulb up there. That's cool. And I'm just saying, look, at night, turn on, and through the little panels on the
louver doors or something
louver
like that.
Door. That's it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Through those blinds or those louvers, you get a little bit of casting light. It looks really cool. The light has a pull chain on it. And as soon as I put the LED bulb, the smart bulb in, and had it controlled by time, sure enough, somebody, I don't remember who, went in and pulled the chain on it to try to get it on and off, and left it in the off position. So it didn't work until I found that out and had to go turn it back on. So again, what should I have done instead? Unfortunately, I don't really have a good option there because there's no light switch that controls it. There's no outlet to intersect with it. It is already wired into the ceiling, and it has a pull chain. Really, what I'm going to do is just remove the pull chain.
Remove the chain. Yeah. No, remove the pull. And I think that's the way you have to do it. The smart
bulb work the way I want it to work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. One last one. And I'm going to give you a quick example. While we're doing this, I'll give you an example of a very unique case.
Okay.
I have a lawnmower and a blower and a weed eater that all use the same batteries, and the batteries go on chargers. And if I just sit the batteries on the chargers forever, then I'm worried about the constant power going to these batteries. So if I want to creatively turn on this charger, but also cycle it on and off, actually, I'll give you a different version. My old van that I have a rechargeable battery inside, a house battery, I don't want it charging all the time for weeks and weeks and weeks, just constant power. I want the power only to go in cycles of turn on for 3 hours, and now wait for a week and turn on for another 3 hours, wait for a week, turn on for another 3 hours.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Which is
a simple disclaimer. This episode is about lighting, and this has nothing to do with lighting that you described. I just want to go ahead and get that out there.
But you brought up the outlets, right? So obviously,
that's the answer. Obviously, is the
because it's on and off, right?
Right. Well, and the thing you can do too, I know you can do this in any of the home environments, is you can set a smart outlet to say that when the outlet comes on, you can specify how long it's on for in your home kit, your Alexa, or your Google Home. So for example, if I say, look, when this outlet, I turn it on, if I want it to come on at 8 o'clock in the morning, so anything plugged into it's going to be off until 8 o'clock in the morning. Then all of a sudden the outlet springs to life. But I can say I want it to stay on for X number of hours. So in other words, I'll say 8 o'clock, but I want it to only stay on for 3 hours, and then it's going to shut off. So what's going to happen, anything plugged into that outlet will come on if it's set to automatically be on at 8 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock in the morning, that outlet shuts off, and anything plugged up to it loses power and stops charging. Right.
Well, which is another, I would say, and the reason I brought that up is because when you buy these outlets, if it's not lights, and eventually you're moving towards maybe more creative light bulbs and things like that, you got to be thinking, what else could I use these outlets for? Because I do have a couple of them sitting aside, and I've started using one for charging. Mm-hmm. I would say the Christmas lights is the most perfect use for an outlet. You know, it's like, I want the lights on, I want the lights off, and I want them on at certain times, and I want people to think I'm home.
It's perfect for that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Brian, actually years and years ago, when I think my wife and I our first house we moved into, and this is before any home automation stuff happened. And we were having to go around to every window and turn on plug in the little candle light in every window, like 12 windows, having to do that every single night and to go take them back off. And I did not want to hook up those little mechanical timers that we used to have on there
that don't change with sundown,
they don't change with
all these sorts of things, right?
Or time, daylight savings time or anything. And I even said at that point, this was like 97, 98. I'm like, there's got to be a way to automate this at some point in the future. Now they started working towards other ways where, like, I think they made one where if you twist the the little candle top part to turn it on. It will only stay on for X number of hours. It's got like its own internal timer to some of those lights. But yes, you're right. The Christmas lights nowadays, that is the ultimate like reason why home lighting automation exists is to have those lights
That's exactly
come
right.
on in multiple places at one time at night, go off. You don't have to worry about going and unplugging and plugging each night to do that. So yeah.
I love it. Love it.
I love the
Cool.
smart lighting, but I'm
this
just,
is
I'm
great.
just,
Yeah.
I love smart lighting. I'm just here to say, don't get fooled by the, oh, just go buy some bulbs and swap out your bulbs. It's not as simple as that. If you're really trying to make smart lighting work in a house, you've got to think about all the different types of lighting situations. You really need to kind of strategize and decide which of those 3 types I shared are what can work for that particular light situation. Or you put the money in and you go get brand new devices that already have the smarts built into them that you don't have to worry about. You just plug them in and they're automatically able to be connected and work the way you want them to. I just say that not everybody's in that situation where we're going to go out and buy all new lighting appliances throughout our house. We got to make do with what we've got. And these are the ways to do that. So
good. I think it's great. Right. Yeah. Very nice.
Okay, good. Well, I'm done. Ooh. So Brian, what do you
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I jump in here?
No, you're good. You did enough.
No, that was good.
So Brian,
good,
if people did, if people do want to talk to us about smart lighting or maybe some examples of things they've done, I mean, also too, you got a challenge. You got to, like Brian gave out some of those examples. You got something where you're trying to figure out the best lighting and you need some help, shoot it our way, man. We'd love to talk to you about it and to figure out the best way to do it. But Brian, if anybody had any of those situations, how do they reach us?
So as always, send us an email is one way, info@themesh.tv, info@themesh.tv. You can send us your thoughts, your strategies, creative things you've done. We'd love to be able to brag about some of our listeners and say what kind of things that you guys have come up with. And I mean, quite honestly, the reason Alan and I do this show is that I think both of us just want to improve our own tech, and we just want to continue to outdo each other. So if you can give us a heads up of ways we can get some new strategies, we'd love that. You can also go and visit our website, which is, here we go. Look at that, man. You are on it, right? www.brothers-in tech. So www.brothers-in-tech.com. And there's going to be a contact form in there where you can kind of reach us, but you'll also be able to get the latest episodes. Eventually we'll start to have our own reviews of certain products, especially as we get information from you all that maybe don't get into an episode, but you give us information after an episode. We'd love to be able to put it on our website and say, here's from John in Arizona gives us this tip, and here you go. So that's going to be where we're going to be sharing some of that. So please do let us know some ideas, and we'll be happy to share those out. So
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, great. Excited.
All right, we're going to wrap up this conversation. We've been going for about an hour, so there's plenty of talk about smart lighting strategies. I know, really. Every time we say, "Oh, it's going to be a short episode,"
this will be a short
20
one.
minutes. It never is.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thanks everybody for watching and listening up to this point, and we will be back next time with another discussion of home, family, personal technology, ways to make it work for you in your life. And I'm Alan Jackson. This is Brian Jackson over that way.
Yeah, one of these days you will figure it out. One of these days. Yeah.
All right, there he is. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, bye-bye.